surviving.
Nightmare fuel. Can you survive? I've always had a fascination with dreams. What they are, how they happen, what people see, etc. Needless to say, I've done some research in dreaming. Dreams have always captured my interest, but the thing I've always liked more are nightmares. I don't know why, but I love them, even when they happen to me. When I attempt to lucid dream, I always use the wild, wake-induced lucid dreaming strategy, just because I can get a chance at sleep paralysis. It's crazy, right? Well, anyways, the only thing I like more than dreams and nightmares would have to be video games. Especially, as you may imagine, horror games. A few months ago, I was searching on the internet for horror games I had not yet played. I went on forums, and all of the people I had asked all referenced either games that I had already played, or that were well known for carrying viruses. Everyone except one person, whose username was HDExist. When I asked inside of the forum he was in, he was the last to respond. He told me that he knew of a game very few people knew of, and the ones who knew of it described it as the most terrifying thing they had ever experienced. He told me that if I gave my email to him, he would send me the download link. I was curious, to say the least, and a bit skeptical, but my curiosity took over, and I decided I may as well check the game out. I then set up my antivirus software, and gave the mysterious user my email. Once I sent him my email address in private chat, I instantly got an email from him that contained the link. The link was to a site called nightstopper.com, which I had never heard of before. The email also instructed me to hit the NF download tab at the top of the site. I clicked on the link, and I was brought to the site. The site appeared to be a game shop, which, for whatever reason, primarily consisted of horror games. At the top of the site, there was a tab that read, NF Download. I clicked on the tab, and was brought to a blank black page with a bright white button in the center. There was no caption or anything, just the button. I contemplated pressing the button, but then I remembered that I had my antivirus software up, and that my computer kinda sucked anyways. I mustered up all my courage, and hit the button. Once I did, the computer lagged a bit, and then shut down. I scrambled to the power button and turned on the computer. When it turned on, the screen just went into advertisements. I hadn't even got to the startup menu, and the game was already loading. I had no idea what the game was, until the title screen showed up. The game was called Nightmare Fuel. Can you survive? The game must have been the one I just downloaded, as I had no recollection of ever getting a game like that. The start screen came up, and I pressed the enter key, starting the game. When the game started up, a list of instructions showed up on the screen. Here's what they said.
Welcome to Nightmare Fuel. Here is how you play the game, and what to be careful of. To play, you must have a stable mind, with no huge tragedies in recent memory. If you do, it is advised you do not start the game. 2. It is advised that you should have had some experience with lucid dreaming, or at least know how to have one. 3. It is advised that you only play if you have no physical injuries. 4. It is advised that you do not play if you are on psychedelic drugs or medications. 5. It is advised that you do not play if you have any illness, physical or mental. 6. Although this may sound crazy, you must set an alarm for exactly 3 a.m., the song you will recognize. 7. Wait for the game to begin. Press enter once you have completely read the instructions and precautions.
After I set up my alarm clock, I pressed enter and got ready to play. Once I hit enter, the screen went black. I waited 20 whole minutes for something to happen, but nothing did. I thought of it as a waste of time anyways, shut off my computer. That night, as I was trying to go to sleep, the game popped into my head, or at least the name of it. The name sounded like the perfect title for a game I would like, but of course, it just had to not work. I felt incredibly let down, but eventually got over it and went to sleep. When I awoke, I was terrified. I was in a room of complete blackness. I instantly looked down at my hands for a reality check and counted my fingers. 7 fingers, meaning that I was dreaming. After the sudden rush of excitement and a bit of horror after seeing my strange dream surroundings, white words appeared on a wall in front of me.
Welcome to Nightmare Fuel. If you have not noticed yet, you are dreaming. The point of the game is to survive the nightmare. The game ends at 3 a.m. sharp. How will you wake up? Remember that alarm clock? Well, I hope to God you set it for 3 o'clock with a memorable song. If not, well, you're pretty much stuck here. Fun, right? Well, anyway, you can die one of 2 ways. A fright in reality, which is caused by not avoiding the terrors scattered about. Or you can die by being killed in the game. Only the strong and brave survive. And you were probably deemed as one of them by the person who gave you the game. So what do you get if you win? Well, to start, you get to live another day. But in all seriousness, you will also be shipped $1,000, and all injuries caused will be paid for. There's also bragging rights involved, but that's beside the point. The room you are in will disappear in a matter of seconds, and the game will begin. Good luck. You're gonna need it.
As the words disappeared, I noticed that the room was falling apart, leaving me alone in an open world filled with who knows what. The sky was dark with red clouds, and there were no other living trees or plants. There was also no grass, just dirt. Instincts kicked in, and I knew I had to find shelter to hide from whatever was here. I found a small house after walking for a while. Inside, I heard a voice of a young boy. He was calling for help. I called back to him, and he told me to help him. I walked into the room he was in, and I was both disgusted and horrified. He was trapped under a huge piece of wood, with his eyes gouged out, and no shirt on. He had cuts on him with words in some strange language burnt into his chest. The boy opened his mouth, showing his tongue had been split in half. He made out the words, "Can't see. Forgot to set the alarm. Help." I went over to him and went to help him. When I got there, I noticed something that made my blood turn cold. The cuts on him were still fresh, dripping even, indicating that what had just happened to him was recent. Furthermore, warning me that there was something dangerous nearby. Just as I saw the cuts, I heard the loud footsteps coming through the hall leading into the room. I then heard something large scrape against the wall, and I didn't want to find out what it was. I jumped out of a nearby window as fast as I could. The boy must have been part of my subconscious. There's no way the creator of this could have left people here, actually stranded in this world, I thought to myself. But when I saw what went into the room through the windows, I was beginning to have second thoughts. A woman, with 2 small beady eyes and sharp claws, walked into the room. I was shocked. She looked identical to a creature that used to appear in my dreams when I was little. She slowly walked over to the boy, cutting him open in the stomach, putting him out of his misery. Then, to my shock, the woman turned her head 180 degrees, making her twisted demonic face meet with mine. She gave me a sadistic grin, and I ran away as fast as I could, not looking back. As I was walking down a bleak dirt road, I found a dead body. He was missing his left arm, and he had a lot of his fingers seemingly violently ripped off. Same with his toes. He also had a hole in his chest. Inside the hole, I found a watch, which was perfect, as I needed some way to keep track of time. Now, normally, in dreams, clocks are Unreliable, to say the least. But this one seemed to work like a charm. It was 9 o'clock. I grabbed the watch and headed on. I walked toward a huge city. The buildings were massive and they were everywhere. All of them looked like they were at least the size of the Empire State Building. I walked to the center of the city and looked around. I needed to see if there were any other people still living in better shape than the last people I came across. I started walking into a store when I noticed something getting bigger and bigger by the second. Something falling. Soon I heard glass shatter from all the buildings, and I watched as hundreds of bodies flew out of their windows. I recognized one as my mother, another as my sister, another as my dad. I screamed and ran out of the city. I was out of breath, and I just stood there in horror as I watched all the buildings collapse, bodies still falling. I began walking away, trying to process what was going on. As I was pondering what had been happening, I noticed the bodies of the ruined city getting up. Then, their mangled bodies sprinted over to me, tracking me down. They were superhumanly fast. I would have been killed in a matter of minutes if I didn't run or hide. After sprinting for minutes, the corpses began catching up, and I knew attempting to run away was futile. As I was running for dear life, I came across a cave. I knew what I had to do. I walked to the mouth of the cave and ran in. The bodies were nowhere in sight, but I kept running anyway. The cave got more and more narrow, so I had to get on my hands and feet. I looked at my watch. 11 o'clock. I kept on crawling and crawling. I went on, and then stopped. I couldn't move forward anymore. I then turned around to go back, but I couldn't. I looked behind me and saw a strange creature, long, tall, and featureless. It reminded me a bit of the mythical Slender Man, except this creature had human skin stapled onto it. The creature also had huge claws and a hole in its head. I squirmed and squirmed, but I was stuck. The creature climbed over to me and slowly began cutting into my leg. I let out a scream of agony with every cut he put into me. Eventually, I was able to kick the strange creature in the face and squirm my way out. I crawled out of the cave with a bum leg, hoping to God that I could walk on it. I saw that I couldn't when I got out of the cave. I dragged my way over to a small pond and stuck my leg in with the hopes that the cold water would numb my everlasting pain. Surprisingly, my leg was healed as I put it in. I stood up on it, and I felt only a small amount of pain. I stuck my leg in again to get rid of it, but then the pond turned into a bubbling green pool. My leg started burning, and when I took it out, I realized that it had burnt most of the skin off. I got up on both feet, still able to walk on my bad one. I noticed mutated creatures beginning to rise out of the water. I ran, each step making me wince in pain. I looked down at my watch. 1 a.m. I was so close to beating this. I ran and ran. I just flat out sprinted for the longest time, ignoring the horrifying creatures that were lurking in the distance. Eventually, I reached a dead end. A huge brick wall. I sat against it and cried. When I looked up, I noticed I was being surrounded by the mutants from the pond. They walked over to me and began scratching at me. One ripped my index finger clean off. Just as one was about to slit my throat, they all stopped. I stood up, bleeding badly and in constant suffering. The creatures just dropped to the ground, dead. I heard the faint sound of my favorite song in the distance. I looked at my watch. 3 a.m. I had done it. I closed my eyes and waited to wake up. But nothing happened. I sat down in horror as the watch showed me the time. 3:01. The mutants got up from the ground, and I bolted away as fast as I could. Once I was sure I had escaped them, I stopped running. I sat down on a few steps next to a house and wept. I knew what had happened. As much as I wanted to deny it, I knew. I knew that in reality, I had died of fright, and also that I was going to be in this hell for a long time.
Start hiding.